In this video, we will talk about one-engine inoperative performance in light twins. There are some new definitions we will learn about for multi-engine aircraft. First, accelerate and stop distance. This is the total distance required to be stopped on the runway, accelerate to rotation speed, lose an engine at rotation speed, and then come to a stop on the remaining runway. Under Part 91, we can legally take off on a runway shorter than this distance. Accelerate and go distance is the distance required to be stopped on the runway, accelerate to rotation speed, lose an engine at rotation speed, continue the takeoff, and climb over a 50-foot obstacle. Most light twins, including the twin Comanche, do not have this distance because they do not have the performance to continue a takeoff on one engine. We have some new speeds we're going to learn about. First, VYSE. That is our best rate of climb on a single engine. It is also our least rate of descent, and we will talk more about that here in just a minute. VYSE is marked by a blue radial line on your airspeed indicator. Next, we have VXSE. That is our best angle of climb on a single engine. That speed is not marked on the airspeed indicator, and the only time we would use that speed is if we are trying to climb and we need to clear an obstacle or something immediately after takeoff on a single engine. And last, we have VMC. That is our minimum controllable airspeed with the critical engine inoperative. It is marked by a red radial line on the airspeed indicator, and we will go way more in depth into that speed in a different video. We have what's called our single engine service ceiling. This is the highest altitude the airplane can maintain a 50-foot per minute climb on a single engine. This altitude varies with weight and temperature. We also have our single engine absolute ceiling. This is the highest altitude the airplane can maintain a 0-foot per minute climb on a single engine, or in other words, this is the highest the airplane can fly on a single engine. It's unlikely we would ever actually be able to climb to this altitude. How we would actually reach this altitude is if we are above this altitude and we lose an engine. This is the altitude that we will drift down to. And going back to VYSE being our least rate of descent, if we are above our single engine absolute ceiling and we lose an engine, we want to pitch for VYSE because that will give us the most amount of time to drift down to our single engine absolute ceiling. And just like single engine service ceiling, single engine absolute ceiling varies with weight and temperature. Let's talk about the loss of performance in a multi-engine airplane. When we lose an engine in a multi-engine airplane, we lose 50% of our thrust. However, we lose 80 to 90% of our performance. We can prove this in two different ways. If a multi-engine airplane has two 200 horsepower engines and requires 175 horsepower to maintain straight and level flight, that means that with two engines operating, we still have an additional 225 horsepower to either climb higher or go faster. However, if we lose one of those engines, the airplane still requires the same 175 horsepower to maintain straight and level flight. However, now we only have 25 extra horsepower to climb higher or go faster. That results in an 89% loss of performance. The other way we can prove that is by using climb performance charts in a POH for a multi-engine airplane. Say we calculate our climb performance with two engines operating, and we find that we have a 1,500 foot per minute climb with two engines. However, when we calculate our single engine performance, we find that we only have 150 feet per minute of climb performance on a single engine. That means we have lost 90% of our performance. We would take 150 divided by 1,500, which equals 10% remaining, or a 90% loss in performance. That loss of performance is going to affect us the most anytime we need to climb in a multi-engine airplane. So various times we need to climb, take off, climb out, clearing terrain or obstacles, or a go-around or missed approach. As a general rule of thumb, it is advisable to avoid any of those situations in a light twin when we are on one engine. Next, let's talk about zero side slip, which is a performance concept when we are flying a multi-engine airplane. So the point of zero side slip is to reduce drag when we are in a multi-engine airplane. We would need a yaw string to know that we are exactly in zero side slip. However, the manufacturers of multi-engine airplanes give us a combination of rudder and bank to use to get us close to zero side slip. It's typically going to be anywhere from 2 to 5 degrees of bank and 1/2 ball to 1/3 ball rudder deflection towards the operative engine. So let's talk about a few different ways we could fly the airplane on one engine. If we were to fly the airplane with the wings level and use only rudder to maintain directional control, we would be slipping into the relative wind, and the relative wind would be hitting the side of the airplane that has the inoperative engine. So in this picture, the left engine is inoperative, the right engine is operative. This airplane is flying wings level and using only rudder to maintain directional control. And you can see from the arrow, the relative wind is hitting it on the left side of the airplane. That increases drag and decreases performance. In this next picture, this airplane is using only bank to maintain directional control and no rudder. So again, the left engine is inoperative, the right engine is operative, and it is banked into that operative engine and not using any rudder. The relative wind is hitting this airplane from the opposite side. It's hitting it from the right, also increasing drag and decreasing performance. Let's talk about low altitude engine failures in a multi-engine airplane. When we lose an engine on the runway, our course of action should be to close the throttles and maintain center line and stop the airplane. In a light twin, we should not be attempting to continue a takeoff on one engine if we lose an engine on the runway. Next, we could lose an engine after takeoff with the landing gear down. If that occurs, our best course of action should be to close the throttles, pick the best place to land, whether that's on remaining runway or something beyond the runway, just the best spot in front of us, and land the airplane. If our landing gear is down, we should not try to bring the gear up and continue flying if we lose an engine. And last, we might lose an engine after takeoff with the landing gear up. If this occurs, our best course of action is going to be to perform the memory items, which is what we'll call the drill, and we'll go into that in just a minute. To do that, we're going to maintain directional control, pitch for our blue line, verify that we have full power. We're going to start with the mixtures, push the mixtures forward, push the props forward, push the throttles forward. Get rid of as much drag as possible by verifying that our gear is up and that our flaps are up. Identify the failed engine. We will do that by using our, quote, dead foot. One of our feet will be pressing on the rudder, the other won't be doing anything, so that's our dead foot. We will pull that throttle back. If we don't hear a noise reduction, that means we have selected the correct engine, and then we will make a fix or feather decision based on our altitude or the phase of flight that we are in. Let's go back to what we talked about a minute ago. If we are airborne, but the landing gear is still down. Most light twins will not be able to climb with an unfeathered prop and the landing gear down, and many won't even be able to maintain level flight in that condition. That is why if our landing gear is still down, we should land the airplane. The odds are also very high that if we were to try to attempt to bring the landing gear up, maintain control, maintain a positive rate or level climb attitude, while avoiding obstacles, there's a very high likelihood we might lose control of the airplane while trying to do all those things simultaneously. Therefore, if our landing gear is still down, we should just land the plane. And if you have any questions about single engine performance, please don't hesitate to reach out.